Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Hirighty with the Los Angeles County Bar Association in the business law section. I apologize for the delay. We've had some technical difficulties, and not only we, the bar, but we have planned to have a FEMA speaker from FEMA who may not be able to join us today. If she's not, we'll reschedule. But fortunately, we have a representative from the Small Business Administration. And I just want to remind everyone that the LA County Bar on its website has a number of resources relating to relief for the wildfire victims. So please, if you need information about relief, Google LA County Bar wildfire relief, and it'll take you to a library of information. Today's program, we hope to be very interactive, and we hope to answer every one of your questions. We hope that not only do we have lawyers on this program, but we also have victims directly or indirectly impacted. And so please do not hesitate to include questions that you'd like us to address. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Corey. And Corey, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. And it's great to do this second installment for the Los Angeles County Bar Association. Again, my name is Corey Williams, Public Information Officer with the U.S. Small Business Administration's Office of Disaster Recovery and Resilience. My office in Citrus Heights, California, covers 26 states west of the Mississippi, including California. And first off, my heart goes out to all those that were impacted by these devastating fires. So I just wanted to go through our SBA presentation really quick. So with the SBA, we offer low interest loans to businesses of all sizes, nonprofits, homeowners, and renters not covered by insurance or other funds, which may also include FEMA recovery funds as well.
So Corey, may I stop you and interrupt right there?
Sure.
So on that not covered, does that mean that if there is insurance coverage that they're not eligible for SBA disaster loan?
Another outstanding question. This question actually comes up quite a bit, Mark. So with insurance, what happens is if you're uninsured or underinsured, that's where SBA can step in. Now, what we cannot do is duplicate benefits. So if a homeowner or a business owner may have insurance, what happens is we're able to offset the SBA loan. That's why for us, we want to make sure that people are applying early on, because if they get their insurance recovery, 3 months down the line or 4 months down the line, we can just take that amount from their loan, as opposed to making them repay the loan at that immediate time.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
No, thank you. Thank you. Great question. So the incident period has now closed. I didn't get a chance to update my slide from the last one, but the incident period actually now is from January 7th, 2025 to now January 31st, 2025. Now, I point this date out for a reason. We just had the atmospheric weather last Thursday, I believe, and I think it had mudslides, landslides, and different things. So just a note of caution that that is not included in this declaration. So the incident period did close as of January 31st, 2025. So the last Thursday's atmospheric storm, which may have caused some mudslides and landslides, is not included in this declaration. So the physical deadline to apply is March 10th, 2025, and the economic injury deadline is October 8th, 2025. Now, I point out that October 8th, 2025 deadline for a reason, because so many attorneys or so many in the legal profession, don't really identify economic injury as, easily as physical damage. For physical damage, we can see, our law office burned. You can see your home burned or your business burned down. But what you usually can't see is a drop in sales, or in having to lay off employees because the books are tight, or cancellation of accounts payable because a vendor that you're dealing with maybe in LA County or in Kern County or Orange County now, because of the fires, can't fulfill their obligation under the accounts payable. So my messaging is to be proactive. Don't wait until July or August or September to realize that you had economic injury. Economic injury actually started on January 7th when the fires hit. If you were displaced from your office and you had some postponed court dates or anything that could create an economic injury, that's why we make sure that our businesses, as well as homeowners and renters and nonprofits, take advantage of the economic injury portion early in the process, especially for the businesses. So for the interest rates, homeowners and
Oh,
renters.
Corey, may I interrupt real quickly again for
Sure,
another
sure.
question? So you said economic injury is anybody, a business, nonprofit, or homeowner who suffers economic injury could be eligible. So does that mean that if somebody incurs economic injury, let's say they lose their job for whatever reason, but it's related to the wildfire, that they would be eligible? They don't have to be a business.
So, and I slightly misspoke on that, Mark. So, businesses and nonprofits are eligible for the economic injury. However, if someone actually lost their job as a result of the fires, the reason why we encourage everyone to register with FEMA is because they also may be eligible for disaster unemployment assistance. And there's also some county resources now on the LA County dot recovery page. For those that are self-employed, they may be eligible for grant assistance. So great question, and I'm glad I was able to clean it up. That yes, businesses and nonprofits only are eligible for the economic injury. But as a homeowner renter, if you lost your job and you may not be able to sustain that living because of the fires, then they may be eligible for the disaster unemployment assistance or eligible for the grant programs through the LA County.
Okay, thank you.
So for interest rates, again, for homeowners and renters, it's as low as 2.563%. For businesses, it's as low as 4%. And for nonprofits, it's fixed at 3.625%. Now, keep in mind, there's no closing costs, no prepayment penalties. And if you are approved for the SBA loan, keep in mind that you're under no obligation to borrow any funds. And because of the 12-month no interest accrual and the 12-month no payment, let's say we had a law office in LA County and they, had some economic injury due to the fires and maybe some slight fire damage, some soot in the building or something like that. Well, they can borrow up to 25,000 for their economic injury and up to 25,000 for their actual physical loss. And that's an unsecured loan. Because keep in mind, those are the unsecured thresholds for a business and a nonprofit. And let's say within the course of that calendar year, that potential law office comes back and has normal operations. Well, if they decide they want to repay the loan because there's no interest accrual for the first year and no payment due for the first year, if they turn around and pay off the loan, then there's no loan. So I always want to present the options for those and that have, small law offices that may need a slight infusion of capital. Now, who's eligible for an SBA disaster loan? It's renters, homeowners, private nonprofits, and businesses. Now, you must be located in a declared disaster area, which for this disaster is Los Angeles County, and for economic injury only, again, for the private nonprofits as well as the businesses, those contiguous counties such as Kern, Orange, San Bernardino, and Ventura are also eligible for economic injury only, not physical loss, but economic injury only. And those counties, again, are Kern, San Bernardino, Orange, and Ventura. And again, the criteria may depend on the type of loan, which again, if it is economic injury only, then it's for those contiguous counties. But keep in mind that if you are a law office or anyone in the legal profession and you have physical damage as well as economic injury, it is crucial to apply by the March 10th deadline, which is the same as FEMA, March 10th, 2025.
Corey, one quick clarification question. So on the economic injury, again, a loan to help you recover economic injury, uh, the counties extended beyond just LA County that you mentioned. And so but there would still have to be an economic injury that was caused by the wildfire within the designated time frame. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. So you have to have an adverse impact from the fire. So let's say, let me give another example. Let's say we have a vendor in Orange County that did business with a storefront in LA County. Well, the LA County lost their entire business, or let's say they were in Altadena. So now that that particular vendor who had actually, had an adverse impact. They didn't lose their physical property in Orange or Kern County. They actually lost revenue. They're eligible to apply for the economic injury disaster loan, whereas that particular, business in LA County that had physical loss as well as economic injury, they're eligible for both.
Thank you for that example. That was helpful.
No problem. So for our renters can borrow up to 100,000 to repair, replace disaster damaged personal property, which would also include any automobiles as well and any insurance deductibles. And again, keep in mind for renters, interest rates are as low as 2.563%, no closing costs, no prepayment penalties, and again, 12-month deferment and 12-month zero interest accrual. And for our homeowners are able to borrow up to $500,000 to repair, replace disaster damaged real estate, and up to $100,000 to repair, replace disaster damaged personal property, which would include any automobiles. And also, SBA will cover insurance deductibles for which we consider uninsured losses, and we also cover underinsured losses. But now also homeowners can use these funds for debris removal, which has been very much point of contention in LA County, as well as relocation and refinance on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, another question,
Sure.
and they get more challenging as we go along.
No, I love it.
Yeah, so again, focusing on economic injury and businesses. Let's say you're a renter, and in this gig economy, you've got some sort of online business going as a sole proprietor. Does that qualify as a business for purposes of economic injury?
It does, Mark, and that's a great question. So let me present a couple of examples. So let's say that we have someone who has a home-based business, and their primary, equipment that they use is like their computer, which is at their home, and maybe some printers and different things, and something kind of more simplified. In that situation, what I would probably tell them to do, because they're probably using their computer for both personal as well as business use, to go ahead and apply for the personal loan, because they're going to get the lower interest rate at the 2.563%. But if they're like, let's say they're an embroidery company and they have a big $20,000 embroidery machine, and they have screen printing or something like that, well, and they're in the home-based business, they're probably going to have to apply for two separate loans, because it's easier to justify a computer, printers, things that can be used for multiple purposes. But when we have big embroidery machines, or kind of major equipment, that would probably fall more under the business loan. But it's okay to have a home and business. But I always say that, just to save people money, that it may be beneficial if it is something that's kind of a multi-use for both personal and business, to go ahead and apply for the home loan or the renter's loan, because that would allow them to have an unsecured loan and a higher amount eligible to borrow, which is 100,000 for the renters, and then again, that's unsecured up to 100,000 as a renter.
Okay. Okay. And on the amount, is that based on a demonstrated economic loss?
So it is. So what happens once they complete their application, Mark, what will happen is our loan officer will contact that potential borrower. They'll actually review their tax return to see what their taxable income is, and then they will determine a loan that best fits where they are based on their taxes. So let's just say we have a, give you another example. Let's say we have home-based business. They make about 48,000 a year, and that's just an extra additional source of income. So that's like what's that? 4,000 a month. Yeah, 4,000 a month. Make sure my math's right. 4,000 a month. So what they're going to do, as long as the taxes show that on paper it looks like they're making about 4,000 a month, they can say, well, in January 2024, the business had 4,000. In February 2024, the business had 4,000. So they try to get at least about 6 months of working capital for the business. So initially, probably in that situation, they would offer them, probably a $24,000 loan based on just projections alone. So, but that's something that the actual loan officer at the processing center would make that determination on.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. So for business loans, businesses can borrow up to $2 million to repair, replace disaster damaged real estate, machinery, inventory, and equipment, as well as any debris removal and any insurance deductibles, which again, we consider uninsured losses. So in this case, if we have a law practice, they have business interruption insurance, but there may be a little bit of, there may be like a 2 or 5% deductible on it. That is an uninsured loss. So we want to make sure that any business interruption that has an actual deductible, that is covered by SBA. Now, for the economic injury loan, keep in mind that it's cumulative amount of $2 million, but economic injury disaster loan funds can be used for operating expenses such as payroll, monthly lease or mortgage obligations, as well as accounts payable. And in case of a potential business, let's say we have a storefront business in LA County and they're a restaurant. And now, just due to the fact that their building burned, they may need to pivot temporarily to like renting a food truck, or they may need to relocate to a potential other location to rent until their property is being rebuilt, or while their property is being rebuilt. This is the exact purpose of the economic injury disaster loan program, to keep that business sustained in whatever way possible, pivoting to a food truck or using the money to actually rent new space so they can continue to keep their business operational. And again, that's why we want to make sure that businesses, as well as our nonprofits, are not waiting until the very end. Don't wait until July, August, or September to realize, oh, we've had drops in sales for the last 6 months, or we had to relocate our business because our physical our storefront business burned down in Altadena. So that's why we want to make sure as early as we can to identify that economic injury. And again, the interest rates for businesses is as low as 4%. The interest rate for private nonprofits is fixed at 3.625, again with the 12-month deferment, as well as a 12-month zero interest.
Is that business rate of 4%? Is that a variable rate?
So no, so great question on that one as well, Mark. So it's as low as 4%, but there may be certain businesses, and again, we don't make that eligibility determination in the field, that may be offered the higher interest rate. So let me give you a case in point. So let's say we have a very lucrative law practice in LA, and they're about $8 million in annual revenue, which probably is still low for LA, so to be lucrative. But let's just say about 8 million in actual revenue per year, and they own their building. They have no mortgage, no debt. The way the federal government works is that we consider that not eligible for what we call a subsidized loan. So the subsidized loan actually is for those who may not be in the best position to take on extra, that they have a mortgage or they have other debt that they have to consider. And but for the disaster, now they're having this new debt. So I know it seems kind of crazy that, the federal government is giving the higher rate to those that don't have debt. But the reason being is that because they have credit, other credit sources that may be available to them, that's why we consider them for the higher rate. But again, if they do receive the higher interest rate, keep in mind that anything with the federal government, any request can be reviewed. So let's say we have that same business that's, that law firm that's doing really well with business, but their whole entire business, their whole entire building burned down. Well, now they're having to again pivot to new location, which increases their rental costs and some other costs. So if they can show the case manager that is an overwhelming reason to overcome the decision to give them the higher interest rate, then that may be reviewed. So we just want to make sure that in that situation, remember, anything, even if you're a homeowner and you're offered the higher interest rate, you can appeal it, but you want to show a compelling reason to that case manager as to why you feel you should receive the lower interest rate.
Okay,
So
I'm going to ask you about appeals, but I'll hold off if you're going to address that later.
no, we can go ahead and talk about it now.
Okay, so well, can you describe what appeal remedies are available and the process to invoke those?
Yes. Okay. So let's go through a homeowners. Okay. So let's say we have a homeowner in LA County in Altadena. A lot of Altadena homeowners don't have mortgages on their property. I'm gonna give you two examples. So the first example is one without a mortgage. So we have $600,000-700,000 home prior to the fires, and let's say they have about a $300,000 or $400,000 mortgage. Most likely, they are going to receive the lower interest rate due to the fact of lack of credit sources available. But let's say that they actually get the higher interest rate. So then they can come to the case manager and say, well, not only are we having to rebuild, the cost of rebuilding is higher than we anticipated, which raises our cost. And we also have a kid that just, started college, or we have, my mom that was also displaced. Now she's living with us because she was displaced. Well, that creates an economic strain. So where it looked like on paper that homeowner may have, you know, should have received the higher rate. Now they're showing justifications as to why they may receive the lower interest rate. Now, is it guaranteed, Mark, that they'll get the lower interest rate? No. But the more that they put as far as compelling reasons as to why they feel like they should be entitled to it would definitely help them. Now, in that same situation, let's say $700,000 home, no mortgage, and very little debt, um, they're most likely going to be offered the higher interest rate, unfortunately, which is it's just double the subsidized rate, so it's like 5.12%. But again, if they can show any kind of reason as to why they can try to justify the lower cost, again, it can be a number of things. It can be maybe the job, you were displaced from your job and now you're not making as much income. You have a family member that, that's now living with you. You have a kid that's going to college. You have, unexpected medical costs. All those could be considered compelling reasons to overcome that decision. And the one thing that I would recommend, Mark, is that while we have the disaster recovery centers in LA County, the one actually at UCLA off of Pico, and then also the one in Altadena off of Woodbury. Go talk to the SBA representative instead of just saying, I'm just going to take this 4% or I'm upset that I was offered this higher rate. The best thing to do is to go to the disaster recovery center, or I'll also leave my contact information and I'll work with that particular homeowner, business owner, renter, nonprofit. Well, nonprofit's going to be fixed anyway, but homeowner, business owner, renter, to see if we can justify getting that lower interest rate.
Thank you, Corey. Is there a formal appeal process, or do they just simply provide supplemental information?
Usually, another great question. So usually what happens, what we do is you'll end up writing a letter to your case manager, and you'll put your application number and your loan number, and then you'll put, appeal of higher interest rate, of higher interest rate decision. And then that's when you'll just state in there. It's not like a formal paperwork. You just draft a letter, draft a legal letter and sign it and respectfully request that they review the file to see if you may be eligible for reconsideration for the lower interest rate.
And does that appeal get decided by somebody other than the original case manager?
It does, and that's another great question. So not only does it get reviewed by the actual case manager, it goes to their supervisory attorney, and they'll also either second the decision, or they may say, well, let's go back and look at this file and see if they maybe if we can find a way to get them the lower interest rate.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So when we're building now, we want to make sure not only we building back stronger, but we want to build back more resilient. And now SBA offers up to 20% of the total loss for mitigative measures for all perils. Now, keep in mind, this is a new rule that allows for not just the current peril, but all perils. So now that Palisades homeowner, that Altadena homeowner can mitigate for wildfire by installing a Class A fire-rated roof. They can also remove roof and gutter debris that can be ignited by airborne embers. And also, we know that recently we've had some earthquake mitigation, some earthquake activities, real small ones. So now this is that time when we're rebuild stronger in preparation for earthquakes, installing window film to prevent shattered glass injuries, or anchoring the rooftop mounted equipment. And then there's also tornadic activity. Recently, California's also had a higher number of tornadoes going on. So we want to also brace and upgrade wind-rated garage doors, install hurricane roof straps, upgrade to pressure-rated windows, along with installing the window film, and possibly installing safe rooms or storm shelters. And then we also want to make sure we're mitigating for flood, sealing the roof deck, elevating structures, adding a sump pump. Of course, relocation is an option outside of a floodplain, and then to landscape property to improve the water runoff and drainage. But keep in mind that now this allows us to get an additional 20% of the total loss, up to $500,000. So for that Palisades homeowner that may need a little extra money, or that Altadena homeowner that may need extra money, now if you put together a mitigation plan, you open up to another $500,000 for mitigative measures.
So Corey, if the loss upon which you're calculating the 20% eligibility for the remedial measures, if the loss is insured, let's say pick a number, $1 million loss is insured, are they still eligible for the 20% for remedial?
They are. They are, because remember, that's the total loss. So it's 20% of the total loss for mitigative measures.
Okay. Great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. So now let's go through the application process. So the first step, again, once you register with FEMA, the first step in the process that I always encourage everyone to do is while you're registering with FEMA to simultaneously also apply for SBA. Now, again, while our disaster recovery centers are open, I strongly recommend visiting the centers in person. That way you can talk with customer service representatives, get the questions answered that you may have, and also turn in supplemental documentation. So the filing deadline is March 10th, 2025. And again, that's the same as FEMA's deadline. Now, if you have economic injury only, that's October 8th, 2025. But if we have any law practice, any law office, or anyone in the legal practice that had physical and economic injury, that deadline to apply is still March 10th. So keep in mind, physical damage of any extent, March 10th, and if it's economic injury only, October 8th, 2025.
Corey,
So
I'm sorry. I was just going to ask for the economic injury. If you apply in October before the deadline and you can demonstrate that there was eligible economic loss before that, I assume that that would be included in the loan amount calculation.
it would, yes. So we would be able to go back, Mark, and that's another outstanding question. But again, what we don't want, and this is what happens. I mean, I've been doing this now 20 years coming this March, and you would be surprised, Mark, about 90% of businesses will wait until July, August, or September. They'll tap out their personal savings, they'll tap out their business accounts, they'll max out their credit cards. And then by the time they start looking to apply for our loans, now their credit score is lowered. They have no funds in the bank and they're essentially, tapped out. So that's why for me, my messaging and being proactive is to make sure that they apply earlier than later, because again, the economic injury started on January 7th when the fire started. And most businesses probably immediately after that, after the fire started, they probably immediately saw economic injury. So again, that time to apply is now, because if they are approved, then they also can request increases in loan amounts for up to 2 years up from the date of the loan authorization agreement. So by getting in the system, let's say in February or March or April versus July, August, or September, now if they need more funds in July, August, or September, they can always go back and request additional funds.
Okay, thank you.
So now for our loss. So once we have a completed application, we're going to send an inspector from our loss verification team to inspect the damage. And then usually the SBA assessment is going to be much higher than the actual assessment of the insurance company, which should cover any uninsured or underinsured areas. Then once the loan officer actually reviews the case, they'll recommend a loan amount, and then it's sent over to our legal department, and that's where you will have the most interaction with the case manager, where you'll have that one person, he or she will be assigned to your file throughout the full funding of your loan. Now, keep in mind, for homeowners, the unsecured amount is 50,000. So if you have full insurance coverage, but you have a deductible, you can get up to $50,000 unsecured, no collateral at all. And for our business owners, you can get up to 25,000 for physical loss, 25,000 for economic injury. So you can't cross collateralize. So you can't get 50,000 for working capital and zero for physical loss. It's 25 and 25, and that's unsecured as well. And that's, I always try to really talk about that more, because so many businesses may need capital and nonprofits, but they don't want to pledge collateral. So I always want to present that option of the 25 and 25 physical, economic, and then 50,000 for homeowners as unsecured.
Okay, Corey, this may be a good time to ask a question from our audience. It is, let's see, the mobile dog groomer business had about a third of her practice in the Palisades. And the question is, this is from her CPA, can we just create a worksheet showing the areas where revenue was earned in 2024 and will not be earned in 2025 to substantiate the loss of about a third of the $120,000 business?
And the answer to that question is yes. But also, Mark, in that situation, um, they also have to show the tax returns to be able to justify that that is business income as well. Because one thing we know, sometimes people don't report all their income. So, and a side business, side hustles, I guess you would call them, if it's not reported, then it's not considered actual business income. So we want to make sure that it is reflected on their tax return. That's my one caveat I would say.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and ask this next question. Is this loan for mitigative measures only available for disasters?
It is. So you have to have, and now you can see the disaster loan limits. If you look on the bottom right, 20% of verified physical damage. So if you have no damage, 20% of zero is unfortunately zero. So so you have to have damage in order to be eligible for the mitigation loans.
Okay. And here's an interesting question,
Mhm.
follow-up question on that. Are HOAs covered as a business? So, many multifamily dwellings have homeowners associations. Some may be incorporated, some may not be. And the associations are responsible for common area expenses. So, for example, um, let's take an example. Let's say that there's a association of 10 units that has smoke damage. The association may be responsible for cleaning up the common areas,
Mhm.
independent of, the individual homeowners. Is the association a business that can qualify for?
That's another great question, Mark. Most of the time, I've seen in my history at SBA that the homeowner associations usually kind of set up as a nonprofit. But yes, they are eligible as a business or a nonprofit. I've seen associations where they have a common road area that was washed away or destroyed by the fire. Yes, they are eligible, whether they are business or a private nonprofit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So, for our business loans, just to recap, for business loans, which would include working capital or our economic injury loans, cap is at $2 million unless that business is considered a major source of employment. Home loans up to 500,000 to repair, replace disaster damage real estate, and up to $100,000 to repair, replace disaster damage personal property, which would include vehicles. And again, renters are up to 100,000 to repair, replace personal property, which would include vehicles. And then mitigation, again, you have to have some physical damage, but it's 20% of the verified physical damage. And for homeowners, that's limited to an additional 500,000. So we have customer service representatives staffed in all disaster recovery centers alongside FEMA, operating under the same hours. And our customer service representatives are available to answer loan program questions, explain the application process, and assist with completion of the application, and also assist with loan reconsideration or reconsideration or reacceptance. I apologize. So keep in mind for SBA, a no is never a final no. You have up to 6 months to apply for reconsideration on declined applications, and the same if your application may be withdrawn as well. So if you have any questions, you can go to sba.gov/disaster, or you can visit lending.sba.gov, or you can call our 800 number, 659-2955 at 1-800-659-2955. But again, I strongly encourage you, while we have our excellent customer service representatives, not only from both FEMA and SBA at the disaster recovery centers, I strongly encourage you to visit a disaster recovery center that's closest to you. And with that, I will pass it back to you, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Corey. Let's see, there's another question. Are there volunteer opportunities? And this comes from our guest, Phil Hammond, who is a CPA and is offering to help after the March 15th crunch. Phil, yes, there are volunteer opportunities, and you can find resources related to them on the LA County Bar website that I mentioned, the resources section for the wildfires. There are links to organizations that offer workshops and training programs for volunteers who are helping those in need. And so thank you for reminding us that there are these volunteer opportunities. I have to say that I'm very proud of my colleagues at the bar and lawyers throughout the state, lawyers and others who are willing to help the victims in our communities. So kudos to all of you volunteers. Corey, could you please restate the March deadline date?
Yes. So the deadline to apply for both FEMA and SBA physical deadline is March 10th, 2025. And I believe actually Brandy's in the room. So I wanted to give her adequate time to do her presentation as well. I don't see if she's been added, but she'll go over the deadlines again if we can add her as a panelist because she's in the room now.
Oh, great. Tarina, I'm not sure how we can get Brandy in. Oh, there she is.
There
Terrific.
she is. So that's my Batman. I'm gonna let her take over.
Hi,
Well,
Brandy.
I apologize that I did not have the link, but I'm just here to answer any questions that people may have and just echo foot stomp, encourage people to register for FEMA assistance and apply for SBA assistance by the March 10th deadline. It's extremely important. If you need support, as Corey mentioned, go to the disaster recovery centers for help with registration. If there are locations that you know of where people are, we were talking about that just yesterday, that we don't know where everyone is actually located, but we want to make ourselves available to answer any questions that they might have.
Okay, so that March 10th, was it? March 10th deadline is a firm one, I understand. And so you cannot miss that deadline for FEMA aid, applying for FEMA aid. Okay,
No.
all right. So it's so important to, now, I know some people received early on directly deposited into their bank accounts like $600 or $700. Does that mean they've applied and are eligible to supplement their requests and seek additional aid if they've already received those payments?
If individuals have already received assistance from FEMA, that does not necessarily mean that that's all that they are eligible for, all that they can receive. So it's really important that people continue to stay in contact with us, update their contact information, share any receipts for home repairs or rental assistance or moving and storage expenses, any of the covered areas of assistance that we provide. And I'm trying to add this link into the chat as well. It's disasterassistance.gov is the website where you can register for FEMA assistance online. They can basically just continue to stay in contact with us so that we will have any updates about their situation that may result in additional assistance for them.
Okay,
that's
so
really important.
It sounds like if they've received some money, they've registered for FEMA assistance, and that's what has to be done by March 10th, correct?
Correct.
Then there's no other formal application process other than just registering on the FEMA website by March 10th.
And it's a very easy, simple process. You would need to have your bank and your checking account information for where you would like any assistance to be direct deposited to you. But beyond that, we're not asking you for insurance numbers or those kinds of things that you would have to have ready. So you should be able to tackle it yourself.
Okay, and then what information eventually does the applicant for FEMA relief need to provide?
Eventually, they're going to need to provide their insurance declaration page, a letter from their insurance explaining what assistance they have received. If for some reason they are unable to go back to their home, they're going to need to show us that they have secured a new lease, a new rental arrangement with another with someone, and also share the receipts to show that they've used their initial rental assistance that they received from us for rent. So there will be a recertification process, if you will, every 2 to 3 months that they should stay on top of so that they don't have any gaps in rental assistance from us. And just to remind you from our last conversation, individuals can receive up to max grant of $43,600 for home repair and replacement expenses, and a max grant of $43,600 for personal property and other expenses. That could include a car, that could include moving and storage, that could include a camera if you're a photographer and that's your main line of work. That could include replacing any medical equipment that you had, those kinds of things. And so there's $43,600 for each one of those categories is the maximum amount that FEMA can legally provide. Doesn't mean that everyone will receive that maximum amount. And then in addition to that, they are eligible for rental assistance for 18 months from the disaster. So 18 months of rental assistance sometimes can be really important to people and help them, even if they have insurance that covers ALE. So that's something that they should make sure and continue to stay in contact with us about so that we can support them.
And is the damage, well, what I'll refer to the damage zone, is that the same for FEMA's purposes as it is for SBA's purposes?
The county, yes.
It's the county.
So for FEMA purposes, so no, it is not the same.
Okay.
For FEMA purposes, your damage needed to occur within Los Angeles County because the fires were in Los Angeles County, and that's where we have an approved declaration. I believe with your business expenses and those kinds of things that Corey mentioned, there's a wider radius because LA County impacts you. You may be doing work in LA County, you may be doing business in LA County, but we are focused from a FEMA perspective and that grant assistance on residents within Los Angeles County that were impacted from January 7th through January 31st when the fires were actually put out.
Okay. And I'm just trying to remember, I don't think then January 31st would cover the any recent flood damage.
No, that would have to be a separate declaration. So there are times when we do not declare a disaster for something that happens. And I'm not sure whether or not we will declare a presidential disaster declaration for the mudslides and the damage that occurred most recently, but it does not fall in line with the previous declaration that has already been declared for fire, wind damages that resulted from the fires.
Okay. And this question has to do with eligibility. If you've been a previous recipient during COVID, and I don't think we've had any disasters for which people would have received FEMA disaster relief back in 2020, but if you had let's say an EIDL SBA loan and you're in default on that loan, does that affect your eligibility to receive FEMA or additional SBA assistance?
Great question, Mark. And yes, it does. So here's what I recommend to do. We have what's called the hardship application. And so what it allows you to do is to get 6 months at a reduced rate as far as the payment, reduced payment for the 6 months. And keep in mind that we have the 12-month zero interest accrual and the 12-month no payment for the wildfires. So as long as they get back into compliance through the hardship program, so it's not just applying for the hardship, it's getting approved and making sure that you're actually starting the payments. So once you're actually approved for the hardship program, then now you should be eligible for the wildfires.
Okay, and I assume the deadlines, the other deadlines that you mentioned earlier all apply to the
Well, the
hardship.
hardship can be anytime, Mark. So it could have been last year. It could be now. It's just making sure to contact the COVID Idle Servicing Center and to request that hardship application.
Okay. And Brandy, does it affect uh, eligibility for FEMA aid?
That's a more complicated question because if you owe a debt to the government, you may not be able to receive FEMA assistance because they will take that to apply towards the debt that you owe to the government.
I see. Okay.
And that could be for a lot of reasons, not just what Corey mentioned with the EIDL program.
Right, right. Okay. Do you have any, so you were mentioning every couple months, there might be kind of this recertification. Will applicants get prompted by emails from FEMA and ask for that information? Or should they proactively be supplementing their information?
Some of both. So I would encourage individuals to proactively keep track of their information, send the receipts to show that they've paid for their rent with the assistance that they've already received to us so that we can document it. And then for those who are a part of rental assistance ongoing, we will communicate with them. But the reason why I say it's a bit of both is because there's some people who are in transitional shelter assistance where they're in a hotel that's being paid for by FEMA. And the expectation is that we will help them to get into a more permanent housing situation, which could be provided through rental assistance. It could be provided through some other assistance from a nonprofit or something along those lines. They could even decide that they're going to stay with family or move outside of the state. So that communication sometimes is a little frayed because maybe their current housing situation is something that we're not tracking. Maybe they're not receiving assistance from us right now. And then they decide they would like to go into a rental situation and haven't even submitted the rental agreement to us. So it's really important that people stay in communication with us. And go to our website at FEMA.gov. And I'll also add that one into the chat, our disaster website, just to have an idea and a sense of all of the assistance that's available to them. When we were talking yesterday, we realized that, you know, some people may feel like they can do this disaster on their own until they feel like they realize that they cannot. And then they're going back and looking to see, okay, now what's available to me? Or now I need additional help because this thing that I thought was going to happen fell through, or I'm not able to get back on my feet as quickly as I thought that I could. Some people are extremely proud and don't want to take assistance from the federal government. And so there are a lot of different instances where people may not totally have researched FEMA assistance or SBA assistance. And so we want to help them with that so that they can get the support that they need and not need it after the application period has ended.
Right. So this question has to do with or somebody who's been displaced from, let's say, the fire zone and has to get the temporary rental. Other than that 600, first 600 or 700 that FEMA deposited into accounts, is there any way to get advanced rental relief, or is it just reimbursement?
So there is a, and I apologize that I can't share it with you quickly now, a resource that I can share that kind of explains what that looks like. very clearly, like these are the documents that we would need. But I would encourage individuals to locate the declaration page from your insurance so that we can fast track potential assistance to you. And if for some reason your insurance company has let you know that it's going to take a long time for them to support you, and therefore you need some assistance from us, because that may be the delay for them being able to receive the rental assistance or other assistance that's available, send us a letter to that effect. So a letter with your registration ID number, your name, your signature, basically saying the insurance company has informed me that it's going to take longer, or I'm a part of the California Fair Plan and it's going to take longer, or whatever the situation may be, to determine what assistance I'm eligible for and or provide that assistance. And so I need assistance with rental. I need assistance with this. And then we can move you through the process so that the assistance gets to you quickly. So there isn't really an opportunity to advance assistance to people in the way that you frame the question. But what we can do is upload documentation to your registration to help to expedite and make it easier for the caseworker to provide the assistance as quickly as possible. And there are people who've gotten assistance within 72 hours. We just need to have all of the information that is required in order to make that decision for you.
Okay. And then for those people who are able to get assistance that quickly, is that ongoing? What's, in other words, every month FEMA will pay the rent, so to speak?
Well, what they will do is submit the information that we need for rental assistance, the documents that we need from them, and then they will receive 2 to 3 months of rental assistance up front. And
Okay.
then during that process of the 2 to 3 months, they should provide us with receipts showing that they've paid the rent, along with additional documentation in order to receive the rent again for 2 to 3 months.
I see. So as an example, let's say there's a renter whose apartment building was destroyed in the fire. The renter has no homeowner or rental insurance, so really no form of insurance to provide for relocation. Are they eligible? What are the requirements? In other words, what if they just lived in the apartment for the last month? They just moved in. How long are they eligible to receive assistance? And what documentation do they need to show?
If we need to know that the person was in their primary residence for at least 6 months. So this
Okay.
may be a sticking point for this person that you're talking about if they just moved in a month ago. So they would need to show that they had been in the area or what have you previous to that, or explain why they just moved to the area, and that in fact is their primary residence. So let's just start with that, because that might be the challenge for this person. And then they would need to let us see the declaration page for their rental assistance, for their rental insurance, if they had that, renter's insurance. So if I had coverage for my personal property, is there also assistance for ALE in that rental insurance that I have?
I'm sorry, ALE is,
Additional living expense.
oh, okay, thank you.
So the additional living expense coverage could cover rental assistance or a hotel or something along those lines for a certain amount of time. And so FEMA needs to know what of that is going to be offered to the individual before they provide them with rental assistance in most situations.
Okay,
Now, if for some reason the person it's going to take a long time for the insurance company to be able to determine what they're going to receive, then it's possible that they could write us a letter and attest to that fact. And then we could provide assistance before we really know what insurance is going to offer them.
okay. How much additional rental assistance is available in a case where someone has established that the apartment was their primary residence for the last 6 months at least, and that they have no insurance, no renter's insurance.
So it's our rental assistance is based on the HUD. The HUD value is not the appropriate word, but the HUD guidelines based on your household. So if you had a 1-bedroom apartment and one person lived in it, then what is the amount of rental assistance that is standard for this area for HUD? That would determine how much assistance you would receive for rental assistance.
And is there a
There
period
may
of
be
time that it covers?
18 months.
18 months, okay.
Mhm. So the maximum amount of rental assistance that FEMA can provide is 18 months from the date of the disaster. But that amount is based on what HUD's guidelines are. Now, I'm sure you can see that that could potentially be a problem with price gouging, with rents that are outside of what the typical rent should be for a 1-bedroom apartment for one person, or a 4-bedroom apartment for, 3 people or what have you. And so there may be adjustments to that. But the basic answer is we're looking at what the HUD guidelines are for this particular area, this particular county, based on your house composition at the time of the disaster. I hope that's clear.
I think so. I think so. And again, thank you for including the links, Brandy. The links have additional information on the FEMA website, correct?
Correct. And just like I believe I shared this with you all before, but we have a document that has quite a few links and information that we can share afterwards for the people who participated, for you guys to disseminate, that just gives really quick information, some videos, etc., that will help people to be able to understand what this process looks like.
Great, great. We'd love to put that on our resource page if it's not already there. We have about 10 more minutes and I want to make sure I get to all the questions. Okay, Corey, I'm not sure whether this applies to both of you or one of you. The city is saying it is safe to reoccupy our apartment, but it is not. What if your criteria for habitability goes beyond physical damage, i.e. the water is contaminated, the electricity is in and out, it is rat infested, and the air is very toxic. The building may not have burned down, but it is uninhabitable. How can FEMA help and SBA too?
Yeah, I'm
My
going to
question
defer
is based on a physical inspection by the inspector.
I'm going to defer to Brandy
Yeah.
on that one.
So we have
You give her the tough
very
ones.
clear habitability requirements that say your home is safe and secure if these things are in place. One of those is water. You have to have running water that you can use. You also have to have power, electricity available to your home. So we also have a link that I could share, and I just can't share it on my thumbs. I'm not as good as that as I would like to be. That gives you all of the habitability requirements for FEMA assistance. One thing that we have noted with the county and the state is that our habitability requirements do not include air concerns. So, pollution in the air and those kinds of things. However, that is something that may be acted on, by the state, county, local government, et cetera. And they are making great strides in making sure that people have the information that they need about air quality. But that is not one of our habitability standards that would allow us to provide you with assistance to live elsewhere, which
What
is the
about,
most important thing.
yeah, right. What about like air purifiers? Is it FEMA able to assist with that?
It is possible. It depends. What I will say is that every nonprofit event that I've attended, they've been giving out air purifiers. So I would just really encourage people to avail themselves of those opportunities. because even if you were to receive FEMA assistance for it, you would be applying that to your max, where you could just get an air purifier for free. I mean, that's just my thought. I wouldn't want that to apply to my max.
Okay. I have to ask this question because I know people are thinking about it, or at least I am. So given the current environment and everything that's been in the news about the stress and strains on federal employees, it sounds like this requires a lot of work. Processing all these applications require a lot of work and manpower. What are you saying to address people's concerns about the manpower availability of resources at both FEMA and SBA?
I would say business as usual. You
Yeah, we
know,
are here.
yeah, we're here. Yeah, I mean, we have a team of outstanding SBA, FEMA staff, and yes, we've had some cuts. It's been a part of it's been tough, but we have some outstanding individuals who are still working and accomplishing the mission. And we're, for those who are here, we're not going anywhere.
Great, great. Well, we appreciate certainly all the work that both of you have put in, and both of you I know have been doing this for years and are very experienced, and we're so happy that you joined us on the program. And
I did want to have Brandy talk about just clean up. I may have made a little bit of mistake as far as LA County stuff. So Brandy, do you mind kind of touching on that? Because I want to make sure that's clean for like the resources like grants and stuff that may be available on the county side.
So the area that's impacted for FEMA assistance is LA County. And I think that explains it all. And LA County also has resources available, and so does the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services. So we are not the only game in town to provide assistance to individuals, but our emergency management assistance is the backbone of what people expect from a grant perspective when things like this happen.
okay.
Hope that helps.
Corey, did that?
Tremendously, yes, because I kind of butchered the website. I knew it was LA County Recovers or something like that. So I was like, let's let
recovery.lacounty.gov
there we go.
Is a great resource with information about all of us and all that we're doing. Thanks, Corey.
Yeah, no, thank you. Well, that's why I got to start correcting myself. You are my Bat woman. I can't say you're my Batman. You're my Bat woman. So.
Same. Well, Batman. Yeah. And Robin. Yes. We figure it out.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I'm going to give you dynamic duo a challenging question here.
We're ready.
Okay.
What about the water being contaminated that the county is confirming is the case, with signs all over the place? And then please also address the rat infestations due to the fire.
Yep, that's all, Brandy.
Look, disasters are incredibly challenging. And not only the disaster itself, but the following effects. So while I can't speak directly to the rat infestation because that has not been on my radar thus far in the communication space, what I can say is that if there are challenges with water and your home is not habitable, then you could be eligible for FEMA assistance, which is one of the reasons why we want people to register and find out what they're eligible for. This is not the time to be, as my dad would potentially be, not wanting to take a handout or support. This is the time to raise your hand and say, I'm not sure what I'm eligible for, but if there's help available, let me know what help is available, because this recovery is going to take quite a while. Resources will be strained individually to be able to cover all of the things that you need to cover I don't care, how much money you make. These disasters are indiscriminate in how they impact people. And so we are here as a resource, but we cannot help if you don't avail yourself of the resource. And not having water would be a reason why maybe you should not be staying in your property at this time. And so let's work together, come to one of our disaster recovery centers, reach out to us so that we can at least let you know what's available so that you can make a clear-eyed decision about what you want to apply for.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Lastly, Brandy, I was just curious, I guess in the past several years, certainly in California anyway, we've had wildfires. I think probably not on a scale like those in LA. But have you seen other disasters that rival kind of the effort that FEMA is going to be challenged with in the past?
This is a unique disaster, but what I will say is that comparing disasters is not the thing that I think we should focus on, because they are so different and they are so unique to each individual. We were just participating in a bus tour where I was able to speak to someone whose life was upended by this disaster. And the last thing that they want to hear from me is that this disaster is the same as some other disaster. It's not. It's individual and it's unique to the people who were impacted. Topography is different. The communities are different. Their decisions on whether or not they're going to rebuild, to stay together, all these things are different. And so while there are things that we can learn from previous disasters, we've had a lot of fire disasters within Region 9 that I've had to be responsible for, including Maui. It's still different and unique. And so I want people to be able to share what those differences are so that we can alter, update the way that we interpret law and guidance that we have as an agency to best fit their needs. And although I'm not the decision maker on those, as a communicator, this is a two-way communication where I take that information back. So the best thing that I would suggest for people is to research some of those other fire disasters, see what they learned as a result on how to navigate the recovery process. And if there are things that you can apply, definitely do so. I'd also encourage people to think about how they're going to rebuild, if they're going to rebuild, because there are ways to do it to avoid this level of devastation moving forward. And we have information about that. We have information about preparing for disasters that people rarely access before they see devastation like this. And so now is a great time to recenter and refocus people on what it's going to take to live in spaces where fires happen regularly.
Yeah, that's very, very valuable insight. And we certainly appreciate both your and Corey's clear sensitivity to the differences in how these disasters affect different communities, and really appreciate all your efforts again. Our time is about up, so I want to thank you, thank those who participated. Please remember, for those of you who came late, that there are resources on the LA County Bar's website. It's entitled "The Library of Resources for the Fire Victims." And again, thank you so much, and good luck to all the work that you'll both be doing to help our communities out here.
We're glad to be of assistance.
Thank you guys for doing this. It's helpful. We enjoy our jobs, but we can't do it without vehicles like this. So thank you too.
Great. You're welcome. All right. Take care now.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Tarina.